Sometimes life changes in a second. Ricardo thought that afternoon would be just another barbecue, another social event to accompany his wife. But it took only a look, a gesture, and everything he believed about his marriage began to crumble. There were no screams, no dramatic scene, just a heavy silence and a decision no one saw coming. This is the story of how an ordinary man was backed into a corner and responded in a way that surprised even those who thought they knew him by heart. Subscribe now to Echoes of Temptation and follow every detail of this turning point, where humiliation was transformed into something much, much greater. I didn't want to go. Corporate events were never my thing. But Camilla insisted. She said it would be quick, that I needed to socialize, to loosen up a bit. The truth is, deep down, I knew we weren't doing so well. Small arguments, a certain distance, but nothing I considered irreversible. We arrived at the barbecue around 4. It was a typical scene. Loud music, the smell of burnt meat, people talking in scattered groups. Camilla introduced me to a few colleagues and then disappeared into the crowd. I didn't mind, at least not for the first few minutes. I grabbed a beer, leaned against the grill, and just watched. That's when I noticed. Between the tables, Camilla was talking to a guy I'd never seen before. Dark hair, an easy smile, the kind of man who speaks just a little too close. She was laughing. Not a casual laugh, but the kind you use when you want the other person to know they have your complete attention. His hand touched her arm, and she didn't pull away. At first, I tried to convince myself I was overreacting, but time passed, and it didn't stop. Lingering glances, hands that met more often than chance would allow. The kind of chemistry you can't fake, and that shouldn't exist between my wife and a coworker. When I saw him place his hand on her waist to whisper something in her ear, a heat rose in my chest. I walked over. Camilla, can I talk to you for a minute? My voice came out low but firm. She looked at me as if I'd interrupted the punchline of an important joke. She walked over with that uncomfortable smile. What is it now? She asked, her tone impatient. What are you doing? I asked, straight to the point. Talking. What's the problem? Her reply was quick, defensive. The problem is you're here with him. Acting as if I'm not even watching, I said, keeping my voice steady. To me, that's a lack of respect. She narrowed her eyes and gave a slight, dismissive smile. Respect? You're being dramatic. It's just a conversation. Camilla, look me in the eye and tell me that what you're doing is how just friends act. The smile vanished. She stared at me for a few seconds, as if weighing her next move. Then she spoke slowly, with an air of provocation. If you walk away now, you'll regret it. She said it like someone placing a bet, certain she knew my reactions. As if I would back down, swallow my pride, let it go. But not this time. I looked at her without blinking. I took out my keys. Mark my words, Camilla. I'm not the one who's going to have regrets. And I left, without looking back. I walked away from the barbecue, with the car keys in my hand and a knot in my stomach. I didn't look back. Each step toward the car felt heavier than the last, as if I were walking away, not just from a party, but from 10 years of a life beside her. The drive home was a suffocating silence. Inside, rage and sorrow crashed over me in violent waves. I thought of all the moments we'd shared, the hardships we'd overcome together, the promises we'd made, and now the way she had looked at me as if I were an intruder in my own marriage. I got home, went straight to the bedroom, and pulled a suitcase from the closet. I didn't have the energy to think too hard about what to pack. I threw in clothes, shoes, and enough for a few days. This wasn't an escape, it was self preservation. If she was going to act like she wasn't my wife, she wasn't going to find me at home, waiting as if nothing had happened. I locked the door and drove to a small flat I used for work trips. When the door closed behind me, the silence hit me hard. I sat on the bed, and that's when the anger and the sadness truly washed over me. The anger for the disrespect, the sadness for realizing that what we had built might no longer exist. In my mind, the scene from the barbecue played on a loop, his hand on her waist, the laugh I knew so well, and that sentence. If you walk away, you'll regret it. I didn't know if she truly believed it or if she was just playing a game, but I knew that from that moment on, nothing would ever be the same. I picked up my phone. I sent a short message to a lawyer friend asking to talk in the next few days, then another to my boss saying I'd be working remotely for a while. I needed space, distance. Lying there, staring at the ceiling, I realized I wasn't ready to decide everything just yet. But I was ready for one thing. I would not give her the comfort of believing I would back down. I woke up in the flat with a heavy head and a dry throat. It took me a few seconds to remember where I was. When the memory returned, it brought with it that bitter feeling in my chest. 10 years of marriage. And here I was, alone, with half my wardrobe thrown into a suitcase. I got up, made some coffee, and sat down at my laptop. I tried to work, but my concentration didn't last long. My phone buzzed, an unknown number. I opened the message. Man, I saw you at the barbecue. What happened yesterday wasn't the first time. I frowned. I replied, asking who it was. No response. Just another message. She and Eduardo have been out together more than once. It's not a secret at the company. His name hit me like a punch to the gut. Eduardo. The guy with the easy smile. I ran a hand over my face, trying to process it. Before I could, another message arrived. This time, it was a screenshot of a conversation between two people, commenting that Camila was taking things too far and that Ricardo would never find out. For a few minutes, I just sat there, staring at the screen. It wasn't just the barbecue. It wasn't an isolated moment. It was a pattern. The anger returned, hot and sharp. But now, there was something new. Focus. If I had any shred of doubt before, it had just died. I opened my laptop and started writing everything down. Dates, names, any detail that could help me understand the full scope of it. It was as if, instead of drowning, I was swimming out of a raging sea, clinging to cold, hard facts. The phone buzzed again. If you need more proof, I can send it. I took a deep breath and replied, Send everything. In that moment, I realized I didn't need to confront her right away. Sometimes, it's better to let the other person believe they're still in control of the game. while you're already setting up the board to win. Shortly after receiving the anonymous messages, my phone started ringing. It was her. I let it go to voicemail. Seconds later, another call, then another. And when she saw I wouldn't answer, the voice messages began. Where are you? We need to talk. I ignored it. Minutes later, another one. If you want an apology, I'm willing to talk, but you can't just disappear like this. I smiled to myself. This wasn't regret. It was damage control. She didn't know where I was, and that bothered her more than any fight ever could. The attempts continued, and her tone began to shift. First, she tried appealing to emotion. Are you really going to throw away everything we built over a misunderstanding? Then she moved on to distortion. You're overreacting. It was just a joke. I barely even remember what happened. Meanwhile, new anonymous messages were arriving. Photos of her and Eduardo at a bar, talking far too closely. Comments from colleagues saying it wasn't the first time she had crossed the line. Each new piece of evidence was another brick in the wall I was building between us. When I finally answered one of Camila's calls late that afternoon, she started talking before I could say a word. Ricardo, for God's sake, let's stop this. You know me. You know I would never do anything to disrespect you. I closed my eyes for a moment. I used to know her. I answered slowly, deliberately. Now, I only see what's right in front of me. And what's in front of you? More than you can imagine. I hung up before she could reply. The game had changed. She just didn't know that now. She was the one being watched. The next morning, I woke up to more messages from her. Some were short, a simple, good morning, or we need to talk. Others were long, filled with explanations that explained nothing. I replied only when necessary, keeping my tone neutral. It wasn't time to show my hand. At 10, I met with my friend Daniel, the lawyer. He greeted me in his office with a serious look. After hearing my story and seeing the messages and photos I'd received, he got straight to the point. Ricardo, this is more than enough for a contentious divorce. Do you want to go all the way? Or just use this for leverage in an amicable separation? I looked at him, and I didn't have to think for long. I want a clean separation, but without leaving any room for her to try and hurt me later. We spent the next 2 hours drawing up a plan, close the joint account, transfer assets that were solely in my name to protect them, and keep everything quiet until all the documents were ready. Back at the flat, I spent the rest of the day reviewing the evidence. Every photo, every account, every detail confirmed that what I saw at the barbecue was just the tip of the iceberg. It wasn't just physical infidelity. It was a betrayal of respect, of trust, of everything that holds a marriage together. When she called that night, I answered. This time, her tone seemed more hesitant. Ricardo, you're still hurt. I know, but we both know that deep down, you'll come back. You always do. I closed my eyes and let out a small, mirthless smile. She had no idea that as she spoke, the legal process was already in motion. We'll see, Camilla, I said curtly, and hung up. The trap was set. All I had to do was choose the right moment to spring it. I waited a few more days. I responded to her minimally, letting her believe I was just taking some time to cool off, and that, as always, I would eventually come around. She didn't know that while she was sending messages trying to regain control, every document, every signature, and every legal step was being finalized. I chose a Tuesday night. I knew she would be home alone because her coworker was on a business trip. I knocked on the door. When she opened it, she looked relieved. Finally, can we talk like adults now? I walked in. I placed an envelope on the living room table. We can, but this isn't a conversation. It's an update. She frowned, picked up the envelope, and began to leaf through the papers. Silence filled the room. You've already filed for divorce? I nodded. All the papers are ready. My things are already with me. The joint account is closed. You'll receive the official documents in the next few days. She laughed, but the sound died quickly. You're making a huge mistake, Ricardo. You're going to regret this. No, Camilla, I said firmly. The one who will regret this is the person who thought they could treat me like an option. She stared at me, searching for something to say. And what are you going to tell people? Nothing, I replied. They've already seen enough. I walked out of the house with a strange feeling, a mix of lightness and emptiness. 10 years had ended in a few minutes, but it was for the best. And deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. The true weight of the consequences was still coming for her. 2 weeks later, I was officially divorced. The process was swift. Daniel handled everything with surgical precision. During that time, I exchanged no more than 2 or 3 messages with Camilla, and only to sort out practical matters. What I didn't expect was that the news would reach me through other channels. First, a call from one of her former colleagues, speaking in the hushed tones of office gossip. Man, things at the office got really tense for Camilla. Eduardo, the coworker, had been transferred to another branch in a different city. Officially, it was for strategic business needs, but everyone knew it was to avoid internal problems. Without his presence, Camilla became isolated. Some colleagues avoided her. Others whispered as she walked by. Shortly after, I heard she had lost the promotion she had been competing for months. The position went to someone else. The justification was simple. She does not fit the leadership profile we are looking for. Translation. Her image was too tarnished. I also learned, through a mutual friend, that she had tried to contact Eduardo again, but he wanted nothing to do with her outside of work. The alliance she thought she had evaporated along with his patience. I thought about all of this with a mixture of indifference and confirmation. I didn't need revenge. She had dug her own grave. The world simply chose not to offer her a ladder to climb out. A month later, as I was organizing things in my new apartment, my phone buzzed. It was a message from her. You were right. I regret it. I looked at the screen for a few seconds. Then I deleted the notification without opening it. Some things don't need a response. Ricardo walked away from a barbecue with more than just anger. He left with the clarity that dignity is non-negotiable. While many would have swallowed their pride to keep the peace, he chose strategic silence and calculated action. Camilla, accustomed to being in control, failed to see that with every attempt at manipulation, she only strengthened his resolve. In the end, he didn't need to raise his voice or seek active revenge. Her own choices closed the doors that were once open to her, and so a 10-year marriage ended, not with screams, but with the cold finality of someone who knows that respect is a line that can never be uncrossed. And you, in Ricardo's place, would you have done the same? Would you have left right away? Or would you have tried to save the relationship? Leave your comment below. Subscribe to Echoes of Temptation and ring the bell. Here, you will discover real and compelling stories of choices, limits, and consequences. Because in the end, temptation exacts a heavy toll, always.